Hi everyone, my name is Erin Connor and we are here at Perkins School for the Blind where both Ashley Leon and I work. And I am here with one of the most phenomenal lead teachers at the school, Miss Sharon Stelzer, and we're here to talk a little bit about charge syndrome. So would you like to talk about your role at Perkins? And
Sure. So I've been teaching at Perkins for a long time, over 30 years, so probably more years than most of you have been alive. And I've worked with students who have been from 5 all the way up to 22. And I've worked with a variety of students who've had a variety of etiologies, including charge syndrome. And I know that's one of the etiologies that we're focusing on today. So currently in our classroom, we have 2 students who have charge syndrome within our classroom. So I have lots of experience working with children with charge, including going to the national conference on charge syndrome, which is with families and professionals to discuss ideas and teaching strategies and new ideas in the field on charge syndrome.
Awesome. So a lot of the folks in our class might not be super familiar with deafblindness. So one of our first questions is, for people that don't have a lot of exposure to deafblindness and charge specifically, what are some things that you wish people might know about this specific etiology?
Well, I think what I want to say is not just about people with charge, but about people who are deafblind in general. Like any syndrome that you have or any individual, everyone is an individual, and that the range in abilities is on the whole spectrum, from children who need and students who need lots of help to students and people who go to college. So a person is not defined by their etiology, although there is teaching strategies that you can use. So that's the first thing that I wish that anytime you meet a person who has disabilities, that you think of the person first and not the disability. So that would be my answer to anybody about, not just specific about charge, but anybody with a disability.
Awesome. And then our second question is, what do you find to be some of the most effective instructional strategies for students with charge specifically?
So thinking about instructional strategies for people with charge is first understanding what their vision and their hearing loss is and how that affects their learning. So really you have to get to know the person, and you have to get to know the family and know interviews and look at reports about what their vision and their hearing is like before you can even decide on instructional strategies. But some instructional strategies that work really well for people who have charge syndrome are using lots of routine and structure, having total communication. I would say that those are probably my top 2 or 3 instructional strategies that I would use. So making sure that things are really clear for them and giving them lots of information. I think that's really utmost important when you're thinking about instruction and teaching people who have charge syndrome.
And for someone that might not know a lot about deafblind teaching strategies, could you explain what total communication means?
Sure, that's a great question. So total communication really means using a communication mode that works best for the child. So if you have a dual sensory loss, meaning deafblind, so 2 of your senses are intact, you do not learn by hearing or by watching what's happening, because both of those senses are compromised. And it's not just like being deaf or just being blind, that combination. It's really very unique because you have both systems are compromised. So when we say total communication, you might use, if you have some vision, you might use picture support in addition to sign language. So it's really a combination. So for example, in our classroom, we have several students within the classroom who have, I would consider hard of hearing, deaf if they don't have their cochlear implants on or their hearing aids on. So they really can utilize understanding some speech, but if you just use speech, they wouldn't get all the information, access to all the information. So you need to use either print or pictures, or for some of our other students within our program who are deafblind or who have charge syndrome, sometimes we have people who are very young thinkers, and you might even need to use an object as they're beginning to learn about language and have understanding. So total communication really means using multiple modalities of communication in combination that work for the children in a consistent manner. So their parents are using the same thing, their teachers are using the same thing, babysitters, nurses, everybody is giving the students the same information in multiple modalities, and you can't just use one.
Awesome. And then our next question is, what might be some common behaviors seen in individuals with charge? And do you have any classroom management techniques that you prefer to combat those behaviors?
Sure. I think like any person, people with charge, they want to have some control over their environment. They want to be sort of, it's a little pun, but in charge and know what's going to happen. So I think offering choices, I think offering negotiation strategies really work for people with charge, and giving them as much information so that you're not just popping like suddenly, okay, well, we're done with this, now we're going to go to gym, and it's at a different time and they have no warning. So really beefing up the communication and making sure that you give them lots of communication and a way to have an opinion or say something within that. And like I said, choices is a great way, a great behavioral strategy for lots of people. So if you feel like you have a say or an opinion, then you're more likely to be able to negotiate, all right, well, if we do this, then that I want to do, then later we can do what you want to do. And I think that takes sort of the combativeness out of something if you each have equal weight and negotiate back and forth about doing things.
Definitely. And then what do you find to be the greatest strengths for those with charge?
I think that's a really hard question because
there's so many.
Because there's so many and they're so individual. But I think that it's really, I think the people that I meet who have charge syndrome, to me, they're very interesting, they're very fun. It's, I think a strength is when you can figure out what they're saying or what they want to do, that relationship that you have with them, that they light up, you light up, and you can really teach. So I don't think there's one strength for that. It's really, I think, getting to know the individual and getting to know their personality. Lots of people that I've worked with who have charge syndrome, I adore their sense of humor. I like when I'm observing them and watching how they're figuring out the world, and I'm like, oh, well, this makes sense because now I see what they mean, like sort of getting in their shoes and seeing what they mean, so, and what they want to do. So I think it's not really a common strength because it's all individual, but but that's what I enjoy about teaching people with charge.
Awesome. And then going off on that, what is your favorite part about working with students with charge?
I think because they're all so different, and they're all, because of the nature of when you're born with charge syndrome, that it's, babies who are born with charge syndrome are so medically complex. And when they're born, the parents and the nursing and people are just concentrating on keeping them alive and getting through all this medical difficulties that they have when they're first born. So, there are lots of people with charge are born with heart defects and breathing issues and swallowing issues, like just basic life kinds of things. And so as they become school age, that they're becoming, the parents and the doctors and the medical people are figuring out how to deal with the medical part, and suddenly there's a shift to the educational piece. And for me, it's really exciting because there's such a potential for growth to see that, because now we're shifting to that educational. So you're really starting fresh, and there's so many things that you can teach them, when they learn a new sign or a new word, or they're able to walk with a walker for the first time, like some of our preschoolers. I think about, we have a young lady in preschool, and I met her as a baby at one of our early intervention conferences, and really it was the life thing. She was just, she couldn't even sit up, And now she's down in preschool, she has a walker, and she's able to walk around, and she has some language. So to me, that's the most exciting kinds of things. When you're seeing that, you see that potential for growth, that you're really immersed in the education piece.
Awesome. Well, that's all of the questions we have. Do you have anything else you want to add, or?
I think working with people who are deafblind, people who have charge or another etiology, it's so interesting, and you can really just make such an impact. So I guess my plug is, come be a teacher.
Come to Perkins.
So it's a great field. Thank you.
All right, thank you.